Welcome back to another episode of Silent Pals Go to the Movies. This is another Throwback Thursday review, and today I'll be reviewing Last Action Hero. And just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. With the help of a magic ticket, a young movie fan is transported into the fictional world of his favorite action movie character. So let's begin with my first pro. This movie bombed when it was released, but after time, I see it being better than what the critics said back then. Not a lot better, but let's just say decent. Some of the fourth wall breaking was sort of new for movies with action, but this one was a mix of comedy and action, and the fourth wall breaking kind of fit in there. Here Arnold takes jabs at his own movies and himself by poking fun of his characters, lines, and so on. Some of the jokes go deep. Example, when Danny tells Jack if he thinks he is funny, then Jack says, "I know I am. I'm the famous comedian Arnold Schwarzenegger," to which Danny replies, "Schwarzenegger." Then Jack says, "Gesundheit." Okay, for little kids, once you add the Gesundheit at the end, that's what makes the joke complete, but it goes deeper. I actually came upon this online. So Schwarz means black in German. So when Jack says Bronzenegger, Braun means brown in German. So Bronzenegger is also a type of liverwurst or liver sausage. So that's a joke in itself. But it doesn't stop there. In the dubbed German film, Arnold calls himself Arnold Beckenbauer. Sorry for the mispronunciation, which translates to pool builder, but also it's the name of a famous German soccer player. So the script did have some good writers, and I bet that many rewrites just so the jokes can actually fit in both English and overseas films. Next pro, we have many cameos and also actors that have worked with Arnold in the past. As cameos go, the ones that made the actual film are Robert Patrick as T-1000, Sharon Stone as Catherine from Basic Instinct, Jim Belushi as himself, Chevy Chase as himself, Chris Connolly as himself, Karen Duffy as herself, MC Hammer as himself, Jean-Claude Van Damme as himself, Damon Wayans as himself, Little Richard as himself, and also Maria Shriver as herself. As famous actors in roles, we have Tina Turner, Ian McKellen, Danny DeVito, voice only. As for actors who have worked with Arnold before or have been in movies that Danny refers to, we have Professor Toru Tanaka and Al Leon and many others. This movie did go overboard with all these actors. Next pro, the humor of the film I feel fits for a young audience aged 9 to 17 because they will like the funny lines, and some have had that thought, if I was in that movie with an action star, or I've seen so many of these films that I can predict what's going to happen. But also adults, when they see the film, they will see the famous stars or lines that go over the young kids' heads, and they will find this film decent. And now on to my cons. The length of the film coming in at 2 hours and 10 minutes, it's too long. I would have shortened it to a max of 1 hour and 45 minutes, but can you believe there is a longer version that was made before the release, which they had to trim down to make this 2 hour and 10-minute film. I can't imagine why or what they had in the film, as it is filled already with jokes and lines and other goofy things. Next con, the reason why this film bombed. Okay, so this film had a big budget, and they used some of that budget in weird ways for advertising, such as placing the film's name on a NASA rocket and running commercials for fans to call in and record a message to be launched with the rocket. But apparently this did not go as planned because NASA had some launch issues and they didn't want to delay the film even more, and it never happened. And there's a video on YouTube that you can actually find of the actual commercial telling you to call in. But what they did do as advertisement was have a giant Arnold balloon as Jack Slater to promote the movie. Think of Macy's parade balloons, and if you search online you can find pictures of it. But the main reason I found that the film bombed was it made so much hype for itself before it got released, and it also went against Jurassic Park when it opened. Well, why didn't they change the release date to a later date, you may ask, so it wouldn't interfere with Jurassic Park? Well, having talked so much about the film, if they did that, fans would lose interest and not go see the film and just forget about it. So they had to stick with their actual date that they put. Also, it didn't help they were still recording the film till the week before its premiere or release. So with that, you can see why the editing was really bad. They didn't have time to rework the film. If there were any issues, they just had to go around and work around it with the original cut. And also the original cut being longer than 2 hours and 30 minutes didn't help much. I just think that giving more time to the crew, they would have been able to fix some of these issues and gotten it around if they had the right staff and crew on hand. Next con, this will be some of the issues that made the film bad due to not having time to fix it or having to cut them out. One is the bond between Danny and Jack. Danny in search for a father figure, Jack also looking for a replacement for his son that he lost in his alternate world. Why not build upon this? I mean, it would be great to have that in the film, and that would lend more to the character development in both ends. Okay, next issue. If Jack's character is played by Arnold from Danny's world, when they come back and are walking on the streets, wouldn't people notice him as Arnold, the actor? But there was a scene where some kids would run up to Jack thinking he's Arnold and asking him for an autograph. But that scene was cut. I don't know why. It would actually make sense for that to happen. It would give it a more realistic feel instead of just walking around everywhere and people never noticing Jack or Arnold. Because even in the premiere, Arnold shows up and everybody screams and takes pictures, but then Jack runs through people and they don't notice or bat an eye. Also, when he is shot and is in the ambulance people act like he is an Arnold and don't know who he is, when in reality this would cause a big deal with press and other people. Also, how the Ripper dies from electrocution while wearing rubber boots and other rubber material. Wouldn't it make better sense, just hear me out, if Danny tried to prove to Jack that there are two worlds and he is showing him a science experiment and describes that in movies people get electrocuted easily, but in the real world where he comes from, if you wear rubber gloves, you can stop the electrical current. Then Jack later remembers this while he's fighting the Ripper and tells him to take off his gloves and rubber equipment, setting him up to get electrocuted. He does this by telling him that he will fight him with his hands tied behind his back, giving him a handicap and making the Ripper have an upper hand. And at the last second, he jumps over the ledge and cuts the cable and boom, the Ripper dies. And maybe he can say something like, ha, we are in the real world where science exists. Why don't you go back to school? Or something along those lines. Okay, I'm going too much into these errors. There's so many of them. All I can say is that if they had enough time, they could have fixed them and made them better. Next and last con. They did try to fix some errors, but it wasn't the best idea. So I don't know why, but it may have been that Arnold mispronounced some words that in post they said, yeah, he didn't pronounce that correctly, or his voice is out of range and they needed to re-record some audio. In the film, you do notice that it doesn't blend well, so you can clearly hear in some scenes when Danny's talking, then it goes silent, then a soft voice that is Arnold comes in with a few words, then it goes back to the normal audio of Arnold with the background noises. It's an example that a blending audio is not easy, it's talent, so they needed to put more time and effort into that part. And this being done in the film incorrectly just puts you out of the film. So my grade for this movie is going to be a low 7 out of 10. I gave it a decent grade because if you show it to a younger audience or teens, they will watch it because of the action and because they themselves are kids and can see themselves as Danny. But the movie was too long and some errors were left that could have been easily fixed, but it seems that they were more interested in the famous cameos and the NASA rocket to give themselves enough time to fix these errors. And believe me, I didn't go into the Acme video store having the Blockbuster sign still visible. I mean, how can you be shooting a film and still leave the original sign up when you try to make it a different store? That's just unacceptable. So that does it for this review of Last Action Hero. Please join us next time where we're going to review The Best of Times.
Really, Jack, you're a decent human being, basically. You're just full of shit. What are you implying, Reno? That's what I mean. I'm not implying, I'm saying.
Please like, comment, and subscribe. You can find our social media links below. And like always, keep watching movies.